Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't. And today, we have a Christmas tree in our room.
Yeah, I was thinking it'd be really funny if we would just never acknowledge the tree.
Oh.
Didn't talk about Christmas at all.
Too late. Well, nobody just listening would even know that we have a tree, but we put these on YouTube, so if you're watching, you can see the tree.
For the visual listeners.
I really don't think there's very many people that watch on YouTube, and I'm kind of glad because it's not like our space is very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, it's not the most attractive setting.
No.
And we don't really make eye contact with the camera.
Well, why would I? I'm just looking at you.
It's just, yeah, we're not the best recorders for a video.
Although if you watch the YouTube, you can see Zeb's lovely shawl situation that he has on.
I believe it's called a poncho.
Well, yeah, he's got some kind of cover-up thing going on, and it's a nice little grout fit because he's got gray sweatpants and a gray muffler, and he's ready to be all cozy.
I feel a little bit like Clint Eastwood.
Do you?
Yeah.
Does Clint Eastwood wear a cozy grout fit?
In his, Western days, he would have had a poncho. Maybe not gray sweatpants. That's probably not very Clint Eastwoody. But
well, we have this Christmas tree in here because we're recording this the day after Christmas, and we had a lovely little relaxed Christmas day. We didn't really go anywhere or do anything, which was kind of nice to just be cozy. We had like a 2-hour FaceTime with my family while we hung out and watched like all the presents and like fun, like happy chaos.
We talked to them in the morning, our morning, their evening. So their Christmas Eve, our Christmas morning, we talked to them. And then we talked to them again, our Christmas night, their Christmas morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we talked about this last year, but having family, I mean, it's hard to be away from family on a holiday like this, but having family in a different time zone means that you kind of get like 2 Christmases, because we get our Christmas here, and then you get to call, and it's Christmas there, and you get to see what their Christmas is like.
Yeah, but we didn't get any of the cinnamon rolls. We
That's
didn't get
true.
stockings. We
That's
didn't get...
True.
Yeah.
I can't wait for smells to be like transferable over different media, because you can already see things, like you can transport visuals and transport audio. I mean, I guess you can't really do touch, but there were several times where we were watching the FaceTime and talking, and they'd be like, oh, I got this new perfume, and then they would, you'd be like showing people, and they'd be like, oh, I wish you could smell it. Or they'd be making cinnamon rolls, and it would be like, oh, I wish I could smell that.
Yeah.
Smells are hard to describe, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But the big thing is I'm off work.
Yeah.
So, really nice.
Just, yeah. It seems too good to be true, but you have like a week off work.
I have like 2.5 weeks off.
Even better.
The standard, if you're a JET program person and you're looking at this and one day you're curious about the JET program, the standard during the winter holiday is the school will probably close sometime around December, like 22nd to 25th. The school's closed, but you still have to go to work.
It's not like a national holiday.
No, it's just like winter break for the students. Teachers are still there. The school is actually closed for kind of a national holiday from about December 28th or 29th to around January, like 2nd. I luck out because in Ishikawa Prefecture, we get cultural furlough. So we get bonus vacation days that's separate from our paid time off that we can use to explore our prefecture or do some other kind of like cultural event. So yeah, I got a bunch of bonus days, so I'm using them all. Plus 1 paid time off day. And I get about 2.5 weeks off from school, which is a really nice break. I don't really know what to do with myself. It's just kind of...
Yeah.
Overwhelming.
You've been working on a video edit because there's also a JET video contest, I guess?
Yeah, if you're curious, we can post a link to it. I can't remember the hashtag, but
Hashtag.
I haven't looked. You're supposed to use some hashtag, and then you're supposed to use some title, so that I guess the videos are easily searchable on YouTube for the people that are, like, looking for submissions.
It's a program-wide contest, not just Ishikawa Jets.
Yep. And it's for previous jets and current jets.
Oh, previous.
So if you've ever been on the JET program.
If you're listening, I think there's still time to submit a video.
I think the due date is January 19th.
Oh, there's like almost a month.
Yeah, tons of time. But if you're curious about the JET program, you could go on YouTube and you could look these videos up. They used to do it every single year, but I think during COVID there was a hiatus, or maybe even in 2018, that was like the last one they did, and then they haven't done one since then. So for whatever reason, this year they decided to bring it back.
And their videos up to 5 minutes, and they're by anyone who's either a current or former JET, but it's not about the JET program necessarily. It's about Japan, and there's 3 themes, right?
There are 3 themes, but it's supposed to be through the eyes of the JET participant. Oh. So they want you to create a video that's based on your own experiences in Japan, not really just create a video that's like totally unrelated, like, you know, not like get too artsy with
more personal video.
I think so.
About like living in Japan as a foreigner.
Yeah, but the theme is you can pick 3 themes. One's like trying as hard as one can, the beauties of nature, and then I forget the 3rd theme. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's supposed to be kind of centered also around the revitalization of an area in Japan. You're basically supposed to highlight a specific region in Japan. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And
you picked like highlighting the beauty of nature in Japan.
Yeah, right now my current video is going to be about Wakayama from our camping trip and bike trip, just because we have such good footage.
And it was really pretty there.
It was really pretty. I really liked it. It was pretty fun. So that's kind of what I've been working on during my break. Because they released the program like a while back, but of course everyone was at work, and I didn't really feel like using my weekends to work on this video. Yeah,
now that you have 2 weeks off. Just been in here I guess editing, not really recording.
Yeah, but maybe one day we'll post a link to my personal video. But if you're curious, I'll also look up the information. We can post a link to how to find other people's submissions. Because it might be interesting. I probably should look, because I'm just
entering
curious.
The contest blind.
Well, I'm sure that there are a bunch of people that are probably, you know, fresh out of college, and maybe they were like film majors or video editing something, and then they're doing a gap year for the JET program. So
I'm excited to look through the videos, because everybody's experience is so different, because everybody's at different. I mean, I know that the JET program is typically people who are fresh out of college sign up for it, but I feel like there's a lot of older people, and I guess I would qualify us as older people.
I'm definitely older. I think in the scheme of 32 now. So I think in the scheme of the JET program, I'm an older individual.
But it's interesting because, you know, you can be placed anywhere in the country, big or small city, and rural or not, and people have all different kinds of hobbies. Like, I wonder if there are other people who are featuring biking in Japan in a video. So
yeah, because you're supposed to have kind of like a niche. I forget what they call it. They don't call it your niche, but they call it like your undiscovered aspect of Japan or something. So I guess my angle is cycling in Japan.
My undiscovered aspect.
It was some like weird, like fluffy wording. But it's pretty neat because since it's a contest, they actually will have like an award ceremony in Tokyo.
I forgot there's a prize.
Yeah, and if your video is good enough, you win something like
a trip to Tokyo.
Well, you win a trip to Tokyo, so you get to go for the award ceremony, but then you also get a travel voucher. And I don't know how it works. So there's money on the line. Well, a voucher on the line. So
it's basically money.
Yeah, so it's been kind of exciting. So that's what I've been doing with my free time.
Well, in the spirit of Christmas, in the spirit of giving, I don't know, this is a bit of a stretch for a transition, but I was thinking about shared spaces, like giving and sharing. And so I was thinking about shared spaces because I was driving to the library, my favorite of all the shared spaces in the world, I guess. I mean, it doesn't get much better than like a free place with heat that you can hang out in and read any book you want, and it's peaceful. I just really love libraries. But as I was driving to that shared space, I saw a sewing cafe on my drive there, and it just made me think about all these different borrowed areas that you can have. And when I'm saying sewing cafe, I had to Google it because I saw the sign and I was like, I don't know what a sewing cafe is. And it's basically a place where there's a bunch of sewing machines, and you can go and just borrow a sewing machine, like rent just time to use the sewing machine. And it's kind of like, they use the word cafe in the same way of like an internet cafe, which is another shared space that's kind of no longer needed because everyone has Wi-Fi. But those have been fairly popular in Japan, as first is literally a place to access Wi-Fi and use a computer when you might not have had a computer or a laptop at home. But then they kind of became like a cheap place to spend the night and kind of
I think
like
they're still
hang
pretty
out.
Popular, and you can still see kind of sensational YouTube videos where people are like, I
Yeah.
spent the night in a
The
internet
cheapest place to
cafe.
stay in Tokyo.
Yeah, and it's because it's really more than just a cafe. It's like you almost rent a tiny little booth, and then you get into the booth, and there's like a reclining chair, and you have a computer.
Yeah.
So it is pretty interesting.
Well, I had never
but-
seen a sewing cafe, but I was like, that's so smart because I haven't needed a sewing machine yet in Japan. And I don't frequently need a sewing machine, which is why I don't own one. But there have been times that I've needed to sew something really quick, and I'll just borrow my mom's machine or something. And I don't know, I was thinking about here, I don't really have my mom's machine nearby, and I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't buy a sewing machine. But just thinking about stuff like that, and like laundromats are another one. I mean, we have a washing machine, but is there anything, any kind of like shared rental space that you wish existed like that?
Yeah, so I wrote down like a little note that, and they have them in the United States, like board game cafes. And I really like the idea. Also, video game cafes is another thing where you can go and like, usually in the US, they're like a bar. So you can go in there and they're video games.
I've only seen like arcade style.
There was
like
one in Nashville.
Pinball.
There's a video game bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like what kind of video games
Like
are you
Nintendo
talking?
64 and stuff like
Oh.
that. You can go play games. And also I think in Hendersonville and also in Nashville, there was a board game
In North
bar.
Carolina.
Yeah, so you could go and play board games. And I guess I really like the idea of that, but I guess in practice I never went, so I never used it.
Yeah.
But I really like the idea because sometimes there's like a video game or something I want to play, but I don't own it, or I don't have a big enough group of friends who are also
Or like a group
interested in
play.
investing time and playing like a board game like Settlers of Catan or something like that. I guess the only issue is you kind of have to go to those spaces and hope that someone else is also kind of hanging out there waiting for a
Yeah.
game to start.
Waiting to start a game.
Well, that's the thing, because
get
there also
and-
might be a game already going on, so then you're waiting for them to finish so you can join, or you're hoping other people show up. So you're kind of like, it's almost more like a place that you have to go with a group of friends, and none of you own the board game, so you're going there to play the board game.
I know a girl who met her husband at a board game cafe.
So that's
They
extreme.
it's pretty cool though.
It's a good story.
It's
It's better
been
than
a
like
good game.
Tinder or like Bumble or
Well,
something.
there's nothing wrong with those. I mean, if you meet somebody, you meet somebody, but
It's just
pretty
more
unique.
exciting, I guess. Board game cafe. But what
Well,
game were they playing?
I don't know.
Huh.
It's an acquaintance, but I just thought it was a really cool story because it's so random.
It'd be funny if it was just like Monopoly. or something
Probably.
like- something just kind of like bland.
I wish that, and maybe this does exist, and I haven't, like the sewing cafe, I just hadn't seen it yet, but I wish that there was a cooking rental place, like a shared kitchen type thing, where, because sometimes I need to make a cake, and I just want to, I want to check out a giant pan, or like a huge soup pot, and you know how you can take a book home from the library? Like, sometimes I need the oven, and I need to, go there and make the cake.
Well, in Japan, we could use an oven cafe.
Well, that's true. But
Yeah.
sometimes I just need a pot for one dish, and I don't want to spend $30 on a pot where the meal itself, the ingredients are $30, and then the pot's $30, and all of a sudden it's like, well, why don't we just go out to eat?
Well, that escalated quickly. Yeah,
But
I
it would be
mean,
cool if you could rent kitchenware,
Yeah,
the way you can rent books or something.
I don't think I would go as far as kitchenware, because I think especially you could get some pretty cheap utensils pretty
I'm
easily
talking about,
from Amazon and
Big
stuff.
pans.
Yeah, go to Goodwill or something and
I tried.
get old grandma's
I had to go to
pan.
3 secondhand shops before I found a big soup pot that was
Well, I was here in
cheap.
Japan.
Yeah.
Everyone uses their soup pots. They're not letting go of those. They need
Exactly.
them.
Yeah, but maybe I could rent one.
Maybe. I think that's a little extreme, but the one I have seen in the United States is
Extreme.
power tools.
Yeah.
So if you don't own a drill or
I mean,
a saw.
those are more expensive up front.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, so I have seen in the United States there are some cities where they do have systems like that where you can go somewhere and check out power tools and then
That's
use
pretty
them.
cool.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then it also made me think about so my brother and sister-in-law, when they lived in Winston-Salem, and I don't know if they still go, but there was a place in Winston called the Maker Space. There was essentially that. They had welding and wood
Like a
shop
shared
and-
studio, kind of.
Yeah, so you could go, and if you didn't own a welding machine, you could go there and do some welding. Or if you needed a lathe for some woodworking, I think that they had something like that, so you could go and do that. So they had a lot of interesting things that were pretty big, that maybe you
Yeah.
wouldn't own individually. So that was pretty neat.
That is
Kind
cool.
of like a shared cafe.
Yeah.
But
I know our community center has a kitchen, but I don't know how you... Like, I don't need to rent the whole kitchen for myself. I just want to...
They do have ovens.
Sometimes I just need an oven, for like an hour or two.
Just hanging out using an oven.
Yeah, it's like a laundromat.
Yeah.
You're just hanging out using a dryer for a second, and then you'll go home with your stuff.
It seems like they would let you use that. Because they're not
Probably.
using it all the time.
Yeah.
So wouldn't
Probably
you be able to,
check
like,
it
just
out.
rent a little... Like, one of those little tables that has the oven and the cooktop?
Probably. If you live in a town that has something like this, I want to hear about it. About any shared space that you might have. Sewing cafe, internet cafe, kitchen cafe. That's
Your dream
redundant,
cafe.
I guess. But
I guess the catch is, though, it would have to be something that's popular enough that it's getting used often enough that the membership can be low. Because otherwise it would be, like, well, just buy the tool yourself.
yeah,
Because if you're using the tool often enough, yeah, it would be tricky.
it's probably why renting kitchen things isn't that big of a deal. Although
Yeah.
a KitchenAid stand mixer, I left mine in America with my sister. That thing's nice.
Taking it
She's
back.
listening. I hope she's taking
Yeah.
good care of that.
And our wedding present knife.
Wedding present knife. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, we got a
very nice
really
knife.
nice knife. That's true.
Ironically, those from Japan.
Yeah.
And then we moved here. So,
Well, another Christmassy, really more wintry thing that happened recently is we got a ton of snow. Well, actually, if you listen to all of our episodes,
Yeah.
which I don't want to assume you listen to all of them because we make them weekly, which I think is maybe excessive, but here's another one for you. But the last episode was about our snow day. And so you might
maybe we
already
should have
know.
started this podcast with that. Explaining what was going on in the last episode. It
No,
was a field trip.
it was a field trip episode.
Yeah. So if you listened to it, thanks. And let us know if you liked it. And if you didn't listen to it, I think you should give it a try.
Yeah, Zeb
'cause-
spent a lot of time editing it, which I think he's getting so good at.
Did you listen to it?
At audio editing. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I don't usually listen to these podcasts, but
Yeah.
because I don't want to hear myself talk.
Yeah.
I make them for future me when I want to reminisce,
True, when we're
about our
old.
time in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the field trip episode was really good because, so my birthday was not that long ago, and that was my birthday gift to myself, as I bought some little, like, micro recorders with lavalier mics, so that now we can be mobily recording.
Yeah, walk around town, talk and record at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know, it just seemed like a fun, like, thing, because it's just a hobby for us, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I like having, like, the nice, like, trinkets, accoutrements to the
Well, I do
hobby.
like that then you edited, like, a day that I have, like, cozy memories of. I mean, it was, like, a couple days ago, but it was a fun day, and we did a lot of nice, cozy, snowy things. And now we have a little 18-minute recap of, like, a cozy feeling that I can just
Yeah.
listen to. So if you hadn't listened to that one yet, you might be kind of confused because it just kind of dives right in, and you're walking around town with us in the snow and things. And hopefully, there's enough context
We're
by...
like a little rat in our pocket,
Yeah.
listening.
Just tucked right in.
That's what we should name instead of field trip, it should be Pocket Rats.
Pocket rats.
Yeah.
Because the listeners of the pocket rat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have a couple things about snow in Japan and snow days.
And I
Speaking
actually have
of,
a quick one to slide
Oh,
in here.
okay.
That's not written down.
what is it?
So it's not really a snow day activity anymore, but it is a prime snow day activity and often in movies.
Sledding.
And it's sitting on our desk right now.
An empty box of snow cookies from Hokkaido?
No, a giant Christmas tree.
Oh. I was thinking of snow-related things.
Well, I mean, usually in the movie, if they're like sawing down the Christmas tree, it's like snowing or snow's on
Yeah.
the way. It actually made me really curious because if you can't tell, our Christmas tree is fake.
As pretty much every Christmas tree in Japan
Well,
is.
that's what made me curious. I was like, I wonder if we really wanted it, if we were really, in the Christmas spirit. Because
we go cut one down.
I like live Christmas trees.
Well, yeah.
And it's something I do miss about America. So it made me wonder, like, can you get a live Christmas tree here in Japan? So actually,
you
I looked
probably
it
mean
up.
like a live pine tree.
No, so I looked it up real quick. You can get the Fraser fir or like the Douglas fir trees here in Japan.
Like buy them?
Yeah, like imported from America.
Dang.
Yeah,
That's
so
probably really expensive.
one of the biggest sources of these
Why
trees.
would they import them? Why wouldn't they just grow them?
Don't know. Do you know where it is? Where you can go get one?
Tokyo?
Yes, but specific store.
In Tokyo.
And they sell meatballs.
A Tokyo store that sells meatballs, and I'm supposed to know it off the top of my head?
They sell meatballs.
The Swedish furniture store.
IKEA?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, are you okay?
Is it IKEA?
Yes.
I couldn't remember. The only thing that was coming to my head was Nitori, which is the Japanese furniture store that's very similar.
Yeah. So IKEA apparently sells Christmas trees. And you have to pre-order them online.
Real Christmas trees.
Yeah, real Christmas trees. And it did say you have to live within, driving distance of an IKEA, because I guess you go pick it up.
Yeah. They're going to ship it all the way here, but they're not going to ship it to your house. That would be crazy.
So apparently you can get one from IKEA. Another place I found online is called Okinawa Christmas.
Oh.
And it's probably for Americans at the military base in Okinawa. But you can get real live Christmas trees imported from Oregon.
Wow.
And do you know how expensive a 6 to 7 foot Christmas tree is?
Well, a 6 to 7 foot Christmas tree just off the parking lot in America is like $150, I think. So imported.
I don't know that much.
Okay, $100.
You're looking at around $300.
That's it? Oh, I was thinking it would be like a $500 tree.
A medium is around $230, and a small is around $100. But right now,
much more like affordable.
You can get the medium for 8,000 yen, and you can get the small for 5,000 yen.
Well, yeah, right now because it's after
Christmas is over and they're still trying to get rid of them, so you can get them at a very steep discount. I don't think they ship.
Do you have to drive over and get them?
I think that you'd have to be in Okinawa to pick them up.
I guess it just doesn't make sense to designate that much land to Christmas tree farming in Japan.
Yeah, because
if you can import the tree and sell it that's fairly affordable. I mean, it's still, I wouldn't pay that much for a tree, but
I maybe would.
Oh, really?
If we had been here and this was like our 5th Christmas in Japan or something, I
think I would only do that if we had kids, and it would be like, I don't know, something that I wanted to share my memories of a Christmas tree.
I don't know. For me, it's such an iconic experience. Like, it's part of the Christmas coziness. Is you have a real tree.
Yeah.
So
I did feel bad. So we have this little tree that, if you're seeing the visual podcast, you can look at it. And it's a little Charlie Brown-esque.
A little sad.
I mean, it's like 3 feet tall. It's on a table, so that's why it looks bigger than that. But I felt bad for you because on the day of Christmas, we went to turn the lights on and they were broken. And so we didn't actually have lights on
Christmas Day,
which was a little upsetting.
The ambiance Christmas was tragedy.
Messed up, but you were pretty down about it.
I was depressed.
Well, okay.
No,
you were bummed.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think for me, it's like I have such strong. I'm not really like a Christmassy person.
It sounds like you are. You were like, I would spend $300 on a tree.
I said after maybe 5 years of being here.
Okay. It's too desperate.
I just have real strong memories associated with Christmas. You're just home for the holidays.
Yeah.
Cozy, hot chocolate, Christmas tree.
And your mom also likes I'm blanking on the tree name.
Cedar.
Yeah,
we always had a cedar tree.
Yeah.
So a very specific tree. And that was another thing. Growing up, there was a Christmas tree farm near where I grew up that sold cedar trees. Of course, they don't grow very fast, so it didn't take long for the farm's no longer in business. But that was a big part of growing up, so we would go there and get cedar trees.
I have a lot of really fun memories of cutting the tree down, going to get the tree.
I did as I got older because we started stealing the trees out of people's yards.
Shouldn't publicly admit that, but
who?
Someone will be like, "That's where the tree went."
My tree.
I have it recorded. He admitted.
No, we would go to the. I don't know what you call them.
The neighbor's yard?
No.
Oh.
The roadways where there's it's abandoned land kind of, and there happens just to be a cedar tree growing there.
Oh, okay. Off the side of the road.
Going into someone's yard and stealing their ornamental tree.
Yeah, I hope not.
That they were caring for.
No, I really liked, so that's why I don't think I would pay $300 for a live tree, because it would just be given to me. I liked when we went and you could pick one out and you could be like, well, I like this one, but this one's a little, you know, like fatter, or maybe we want the tall, skinny one this year, you know, and then you have to look all the way around it, make sure there were no bald spots on the tree.
One bald spot's okay.
Yeah, because you put that against the wall. But then you have to cut it down. And by we, I usually mean my dad would cut it down. We would do, you know, like 1 or 2 good saws, and then we'd be like, all right, it's all yours, Dad.
I'm tired.
And then you got to get it back. And yeah, it was fun. We would go to these really big Christmas tree farms, sometimes where you would have to ride on the back of, I mean, you wouldn't have to, but that was kind of part of the fun, where the tractor would drive you in the big,
you could get driven further into the field.
Yeah, which were the big trees. The big trees were.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that is like an overlooked thing about the Christmas spirit. It is kind of like a communal, like nationwide. People are generally celebrating. So it is funny being in a country where it's not really like, no one's, they kind of have the Christmas spirit, but no one's really, you know, like,
well, I mean, yeah, New Year's is just such a bigger deal here, so
yeah. But regardless of the Christmas spirit, they do get snow, and they do have snow day activities.
We do have much better snow, North Carolina, than we did when I was growing up. There's just more of it. The temperatures hover around freezing, so it's actually not that much colder here, and sometimes it's like warmer than it was back in my hometown. But
sometimes
there's just so much more precipitation.
Yeah, so I feel like the dampness of the cold makes it a little like, ugh.
And we get thunder snow, or we get thunderstorms. Anyway, I've talked about that before because it still blows my mind. But sometimes we'll see people building snowmen out of the large amounts of snow that we get. And what we didn't realize, Zeb noticed this first, but snowmen in America have 3 parts of their body. There's like, whenever you roll out a snowman, you roll the base for the legs, then you roll out the torso, and then you roll out the head. And in Japan, there's just 2 body parts, just 2 large snowman. Yeah,
you got like a little dumpling bottom, and then you got a little dumpling head.
Yeah. Apparently, that's, if you're listening from the UK or France, I saw somebody on Reddit that was like, I'm from France, and we do two snowman body parts. So I don't know, maybe that's just America. But in the movies that I grew up watching in America, every snowman, and Frosty the Snowman, you know, well, actually, I think he was more human-shaped. But anyway, all the snowmen I knew had 3 parts of their body.
I personally knew.
Yeah, all my snowman friends.
I still think, when I think of an iconic snowman, I still think of Calvin and Hobbes.
What's the Calvin and Hobbes one?
It's the 3-bit, but in a lot of the winter comic strips, they build a lot of snowmen. It's really good. But yeah, I don't know if you're from somewhere that does only 2, let us know. Or if you're from somewhere other than America that does 3,
well, the 3 makes sense to me, I mean, because I grew up with it. But then it seems like, oh, well, one's for the legs, one's for the body, one's for the head. But apparently in Japan, maybe this is wrong, but it was explained that it's like a Daruma doll. So it's like the egg-shaped kind of doll where there's a larger base, and then it tapers into a head. And the easiest way to make that is one large bottom and then put the head on the top, and then it becomes that kind of egg-shaped Daruma doll.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really thought about that. And then another thing that people will make are, I haven't seen any in person, but snow rabbits, yuki usagi, which is literally snow rabbit. But they'll make these snow rabbits, and I've only seen them in woodblock carving, like reproductions of.
I was trying to think, did we see one at the Sapporo Snow Festival?
I wasn't really paying attention.
We saw a lot of animals.
We saw just a lot of sculptures.
A lot of stuff up there.
But sometimes these snow rabbits are little rabbits made out of snow, and the ears are leaves from maybe bamboo, and the eyes are red berries. And I read that that's because, I mean, probably because berries are easily recognizable as eyes, but the red berries, because a lot of times the white rabbit would be an albino rabbit, so it would have red eyes.
Just like a rat.
Just, I guess so. And there's, maybe we'll put this on our Instagram, but there's a woodblock painting, woodblock carving, by Utagawa Toyoharu, and it's from the late 1700s, 1772 to 74. They don't have the exact year, but it's got this big scene of a snow party, at someone's house, and there's a bunch of people partying and hanging out, and in this one detail in the corner, there's a lady who's, I guess, interacting with another girl, and the lady's carrying a tray of drinks out to the party, and the girl has a little rabbit on a tray. And I wouldn't have known it's a snow rabbit because it just looks like a rabbit in the painting, but it is white, and there are people in the background rolling snowballs, I guess, to make snowmen. But yeah, it's proof in the 1700s of a snow rabbit creation.
They're really doing it. You know, I feel bad, but looking at this picture, all I can think about is how cold it must have been in a traditional Japanese house when it snowed.
Well, maybe not, because you would have the irori or whatever it's called.
If you were in the one
hearth.
room that had the hearth.
Yeah, I guess so.
If you were anywhere else in the house.
Well, maybe so, yeah. The paper screens are surprisingly insulating, but not nearly enough. So, the last snowman aside that I wanted to bring up is apparently there's a Japanese basketball team, a professional basketball team, the Shinshu Brave Warriors, and they have a mascot, and he's a snowman. And he's a snowman named Blair. I don't know why his name is Blair, but he has an apple for a nose. And he's kind of goofy looking.
He looks more like a Yeti.
He does look like a Yeti. Maybe he's not a snowman, but it was described, maybe it was a poor translation, but in the English tweet.
Maybe he is a snowman. He's a man that lives in the snow.
Well, it is a Nagano professional basketball team from Nagano Prefecture. They have a ton of snow. But for whatever reason, in this tweet where they were talking about different mascots, he describes himself as depressed, embarrassed, and shameful. I don't know why they would put that on the tweet unless they were making fun of this basketball team.
Really rough.
I know. So then I had to look it up, and I was like, well, maybe this tweet is just a joke. But no, if you look up the Shinshu Brave Warriors, you can go to their merch section of their website, and you can get different merch with Blair the snowman with the apple nose on it. So he exists.
Not a fan.
Really?
Sorry, Blair.
He's kind of cute, but I don't understand the apple nose. But mascots are unique, so there he is.
All right. So the last snow activity we have is the Kamakura.
This is something you were telling me about, which is also in Nagano, actually.
Yeah, and if you've heard that word before, it's because there was a Kamakura period, and then there's something else related to Kamakura.
Like in history.
Yeah, kind of like there's the Edo period. There was a Kamakura period. But one of my coworkers, when we were talking about snow day activities, was mentioning, and sometimes kids will do the Kamakura. So I had to look it up, and the main reference I could find to Kamakura related to snow is in Nagano. You can go to the Kamakura village.
Sounds really cozy.
Maybe.
Probably cold.
I think it would be really cold.
It would be very pretty.
I think it would be neat. But it's basically an igloo. Like if you're from the U.S. and you're thinking about an igloo, a little snow cave, that's basically what a Kamakura is. And at the Kamakura village, you can rent one of these things and go there. And apparently they have heaters and a hot pot.
Oh,
so you
that's
can sit
really
in there.
Cozy.
Yeah, it's more. I think you're still surrounded by snow, so I think it would still be relatively cold because I guess it can't get hot enough to melt the snow.
That's true.
But yeah, apparently you go in there and kind of it's like a hangout type thing.
Like you're inside a little snowy lantern.
Yeah, which this made me think about when I was a kid. We had bamboo behind my house, and in ice storms when I was little or snow, they would freeze and bend over, and it would create little caves. So we used to go out there and play, and you could run through the bamboo. So I was trying to think Japan has a lot of bamboo and a lot of snow, so that must happen somewhere here. So some Japanese kid probably has a similar experience.
I didn't know that bamboo would just fall over, kind of.
Well, it gets heavy because of the ice and the snow, so it starts to bend, and then when it's frozen,
when it melts, does it not just snap back? I guess not.
I guess it's a gradual process. It's not like it's poof, melted. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So if you're here in the winter and you're in Nagano, you can go to the Kamakura village, which sounds really fun.
There's a ton of cool snow places to visit. Last year, well, actually, no, it was this year in February. Talked about when we went to Hokkaido and the snow festival.
I still think about going to Josenkei. That was one of my favorite places.
The lanterns.
The lanterns,
snow lanterns
and then
were really cool.
The outdoor onsen during the snow.
Yeah.
They're just super nice. A really cool place. And just, it was crazy landscape because there was so much snow.
And we still haven't, we've been to Shirakawa-go a few times and never in the snow. But that's
Sure.
where, like, if you look up Shirakawa-go and all the pretty pictures, you know, they're all the cozy.
Yeah.
It's the gashozukuri straw houses, and they do look really nice when all the snow is piled up on top of them. But we still haven't seen it in person, so that'd be something cool to see.
Yeah, just because I feel like we'd have to take like a bus. I don't know if we'd want to drive over there during the
I
snow.
wouldn't drive,
and-
but they take buses over there.
Yeah, I know. But that's why I'm saying maybe that's why we haven't been, because it's like
Yeah.
a couple extra steps to get there. But
Because we're lazy, that's why we haven't been.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and there's skiing, so
But we don't ski.
We don't ski,
so.
but that's I was just thinking of all the snowy things you can do in Japan, and I could not mention the number one.
Yeah.
But you have an update about something totally unrelated.
Yeah, so this is, if you listen to a couple episodes ago now, when we were talking about wheeled vehicles.
We're talking about bike history in Japan.
Yeah, I had some clarifications just because I mentioned the whole ban on wheeled vehicles. So then I was like more curious about it. So I did a bunch more research trying to figure out what exactly was going on.
Yeah.
Why.
Like, was there actually a ban on wheeled vehicles?
Yeah, it made me curious. So I'm going to do a quick run through of history in Japan from 1467 to 1956.
Buckle up.
Yeah. I'll try not
It's going to be
to
really dry.
bog it down too much. Yeah, because I don't want it to be too dry. But basically, 1467 to 1568 is a period in Japan's history called the Warring States period.
It's like 100 years of war.
Basically, and apparently it extended even before that. They say it kind of, you can trace it back to like the 1300s was like
It's probably a bunch of
wartime.
unrest.
Yeah, so basically it was civil unrest where warlords or daimyo were fighting to establish control over Japan, and each one kind of had essentially like a prefecture. They had their own little pocket of land, and they were kind of fighting all their neighbors, trying to take over and establish land. So instead of having an election, they just tried to try and kill each other.
Oh, makes sense.
So they did that for around 100 years.
Which
And
is
then-
wild to have just civil war happening.
Yeah, like generations of people.
Yeah,
And even, you know, if it's true that even back to like the 1300s,
that's
have
all
like,
you would know. I mean, I guess
like
that's
300 years of
you'd be
war.
living in a country where it's a technically unified country, but you would really your prefecture would be your area.
Which I think is why historically a lot of people used to ask, you know, oh, what country are you from? When really they meant prefecture, because Japan used to be so like isolated in these little pockets, which I'll get to in a little bit. But then basically 1599 to 1603, this is when Tokugawa Ieyasu consolidated power and essentially ended the Warring States period. So he gained control over all of Japan. And our boy, Maeda Toshie,
From
in
Ishikawa.
he was one of the last big holdouts threatening Tokugawa's total control. So when you come to Kanazawa, that's kind of the history that Kanazawa is built from for like modern day purposes. A lot of times they'll talk about Maeda Toshie. And for example, Oyama Jinja, one of our favorite shrines, he is enshrined there. So he's like the deity of Oyama Jinja. But Tokugawa Ieyasu essentially ushered in what's known as the Edo period, which is why it's sometimes also called the Tokugawa period. And that's 1603 to
It's like the peace
1868.
period.
Yeah, relatively peaceful considering before that was hundreds of years of war.
Yeah.
So the Tokugawa shogunate is established by Ieyasu, and they have total control of Japan. And so this period is famous for Japan's isolationist attitude towards the outside world. And this is when, to make the country easier to control, the shogunate banned the use of wheeled vehicles.
Which is what you mentioned that last time.
Yeah, so it is true.
I mean,
that-
it does make sense. I mean, it sounds crazy, like such an intense rule to put in place. But if you were the ruler of this country and people couldn't get it together for 100 years, yeah, you might be like, all right, well, you can't be trusted. So
yeah, we can't have warfare. And it's so interesting.
taking the wheels away.
Yeah, and he even took boats away. So he even went as
Boats.
far to ban like large ships because he didn't want people leaving the country. So they banned like any ship that was of size of like being a seafaring vessel. So Japan only had small boats. They didn't have wheeled vehicles. And it even goes so far as to talk about the establishment of kind of prefectural borders. They weren't called prefectures then. But they went so far to, you essentially had to have like a passport to leave your prefecture. So there were borders set up, and then there were stations all along the borders. And this is kind of what I was talking about when people ask you what country you're from. it's kind of like the mindset of when you're in a prefecture, well, that's where you are. Like, you're not going to move.
Well, especially if you're shut out to any of the outside world, and Japan's obviously an island, so that can just be your whole world.
Yeah, like all you need is Ishikawa.
Yeah.
You never need to go to Tokyo.
I just mean Japan would be the world. Then yeah, all the different prefectures would be countries.
Yeah, they would be countries, but then you didn't leave.
But this is also why it makes so much sense why post towns were such a big deal, because with no wheels, you can't have horse-drawn carriages. So, I mean, maybe you could ride horses and just not pull
so that's
anything.
what happened is essentially they set up something that was kind of like the Pony Express that we had in America, that they had the post town because you would ride your horse from one station to the next station. So stations were set up
or run. They would have just people by foot too.
Sometimes, but the important stuff only went by horse. And each post town, I can't remember exactly, but there's a crazy number where like each post town had a set amount of things that they had to have, and one of them was like you had to have 100 horses.
Wow.
And then you had to have something like 50 beds, and then you had to have it like kept going down,
like to be a decent enough spot to stop.
Yeah, because you had to have a certain amount of space for like samurai and lords to sleep in and merchants. And then you had to have enough horses to relay things. So you had to keep a stable. And apparently if they ran out, they would go into like the neighboring town and like go to farmers and like take their horses or put people in their houses.
On a mission.
Yeah, they'd be like, hey, like, we're going to take your horse.
Maybe they have important messages to deliver. But if you listen to the episodes about our summer bike trip in August, we biked along the Nakasendo for a little bit, which was one of the most famous postal routes from Kyoto to Tokyo, and so from like the old capital to the new capital. And the Tsumago-juku was the postal town we stayed at, and it was stop number 69 on the Nakasendo. And so it was, each post town was numbered, which I thought was interesting. But I guess it makes sense if you get designated as a postal town, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was kind of like a governmental thing. And of course the postal towns were also checkpoints. So if you were using the road and you weren't supposed to be using the road, when you passed through, they would stop you and ask you to, let me see your papers. And like, oh, you're from Gunma, like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not allowed to be in Nagano. So they would, I don't know, arrest you or something.
So intense.
Yeah, it's because they were trying to control the country. So they established all these, like, very crazy systems.
So back to wheeled vehicles.
So
were they allowed to use those in 1868 I guess they were allowed to do that once the Tokugawa period ended.
So there were a bunch of roadways, and they were mostly used for horses. So they weren't, like, super good conditions, but basically for wheeled vehicles. Also, it's interesting to point out that during this relay system using post horses and carriers, there were no horse-drawn carriages, horse tramways, or steam railways. No wheels at all.
Yeah,
this whole period.
Railways.
No wheels.
The 1800s is pretty recent to
you should have some wheels going on.
It's crazy that they were able to do everything that they did without using wheels.
Yeah, they were pretty yeah, we're staying feudal. We're not.
Yeah, it's impressive.
But basically, around in 1854, there were some horse-drawn carriages in Japan and some of the country's largest port cities. Because essentially by this point, some port cities were open to outsiders, but they were kind of quarantined like within the city.
Yeah, I mean, how would you get all this stuff off boats?
Well, they said it was really used for like foreign diplomats, because I guess diplomats would come over here and they were like, well, back home, I'd get around in my wheeled carriage.
What do you mean there's no wagon?
Like, I'm not walking. So they would let them use wheeled carriages, but they were kind of confined to a port city. So the first Japanese-run passenger carriage service was approved for a route between Tokyo and Yokohama in 1869.
Which is not that far of a distance.
No, but it was an exception made to connect the capital and the open port. And such, as a quote, such vehicles were not widely authorized until around 1872, when Japan's first railroad opened. And it wasn't until the mid-1870s that the Tokugawa period's transportation scheme was totally abolished and private ownership of vehicles, or carriages, became more popular. So really, like, during this whole period, it's only rich people. So your average person did not have this going on in their life. And so this made me curious. Okay, so like late 1870s, getting some wheels in Japan.
And then you can start having bikes.
Yeah, so what about the bike? So it's believed that the first bicycle was introduced to Japan during the Tokugawa era, near the end of the Edo period. And imports began maybe around 1870, but it was really only for rich people. Like it was kind of like a gadget or a contraption that a rich Japanese guy would buy because they thought it was cool. So your average Japanese person couldn't afford one, but it was really popular. They would rent it out to people by the hour.
Oh, so it's like a shared thing.
Yeah, kind of. So a shared thing.
Full circle episode.
Look at us. So you'd rent it out for like an hour, so you could kind of like cruise around as a novelty, because it was pretty fun and like this crazy, like, whoa. So you could rent it and ride around, and it wasn't until the Taisho era, at the start of World War II, when imports were stopping in Japan because what was going on, that the Sakai area is
like a city.
It's a city, and they start to build bicycles because historically they were. So
before that, all the bikes were imported, and then after.
I don't know about all of them, but like I guess most of them. So yeah, it really wasn't until the start of World War II that this region in Japan finally started making some bicycles because they couldn't import them. And interestingly enough, this area dates back to the Warring State period. They were like metalsmiths, so they made weapons and guns. They had like really good ironworks. And so they turned to manufacturing bicycles. And still to this day, they manufacture about 40% of bicycles made in Japan.
It's a way better thing to manufacture.
Yeah, compared to guns, should definitely be making some
Bikes
bicycles.
for everyone. That's cool.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
About wheels in Japan.
Is anybody still here?
You're here.
Yeah, I am. No, I thought that was interesting.
Okay, I'm glad because yeah, I don't know. It's just really, and I end up in rabbit holes like this all the time at work.
Well, especially because the late 1800s were pretty recent, and to just not have wheels, to not have bikes is one thing, but to not have...
In America, we were blowing each other up with cannons on wheels and machine guns on wheels during the Civil War. And Japan was like...
We don't need wheels.
We don't have wheels. Yeah. We don't need them. Probably because they knew if they had wheels, they'd be blowing each other up with cannons.
Well, I don't even think that's what he was worried about. I think he was worried about people easily getting from one place to another and, like, getting on each other's nerves and starting the war.
Yeah, I think, or like inciting rebellion, maybe because they were trying to overthrow. Because eventually the Edo period was ushered in the period post
the Edo period ended.
Shogunate. Yeah, the Tokugawa period. The Edo period ended with the Meiji Restoration. Yeah. When essentially the imperial faction in Japan overthrew the shogunate. So kind of what he was worried about ended up happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just taking wheels away doesn't mean that people aren't going to rebel.
I mean...
It might cause a rebellion.
Yeah. Which, if you're really looking for a deep dive, James Clavell is a British guy. Apparently I've read part of the book. It's called Shogun. And it's about this time period during like the imperial Meiji Restoration.
I don't know if it would be like a terrible time to live in or an awesome time to live in, because you're closed off to the entire outside world, so all you know is what you know, and then it's all of your relatives are like, this is the safest time it's ever been in Japan, like we've been fighting for 100 years, and then finally we have all this peace. Like maybe they didn't even miss wheels, or alternatively they were like, oh, we got this crazy guy in power and now we can't use wheels. I
don't think they really had wheels before. I mean,
they had wheels, but I guess there's nothing to really put them on if you didn't have a bike or you didn't...
Well, they weren't even using carriages.
I don't think people had carriages. It's crazy, like, you don't even have a wheelbarrow. I guess you could do other things, like just carry stuff.
You got a backpack. I think it would have been a cool period to live in so it's 1603 to 1868, if you were born in like 1700. Because then
you could see some crazy stuff happen.
Well, then you're about 100 years removed.
You would die before then. Never mind.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're about 100 years removed from kind of some generational trauma from the Warring States period. So you're born into kind of like, it's been peaceful for a while, so people are pretty used to it. And then you die before the Meiji Restoration, where stuff really hits the fan and Japan's borders are opened up to the outside world, and you start seeing crazy change that you never imagined possible. So if you could be in that like sweet spot, like right in the middle, yeah, maybe it'd be good. Maybe
that would be like somebody who was alive to see the internet start. Yeah. Well, anyway, that was a dive.
Yeah, well,
I appreciated it.
Thanks.
Do you have a word of the week to wrap us up?
I do.
What?
So it's sharin.
Sharin. Wheel.
It means wheel.
Yeah, well, after all that.
So my wheel of the week.
Makes sense. My wheel of the week.
What's yours?
Mine is tebukuro.
Handbag.
Yeah, handbag. Well, actually, you can't say handbag because that's purse in English, but it means literally a bag for your hand. It's glove. Tebukuro is glove. But te is hand and fukuro is bag. If you come to Japan and you go to the convenience stores, they'll ask you that, like, if you want a fukuro.
But if you stare at them really confused, they'll probably hold it up, or they'll do the little hand and they'll outline and they'll go, bag?
Well, yeah, but the first word is fukuro.
Yeah.
And that means bag. And so, yeah, you can't forget your handbag when you go out in the snow.
It's very true.
Tebukuro. And also, I have to apologize because I used tashikani twice, and I don't know
real problem.
How I missed that. It really didn't sink in, apparently, because I explained it as my word of the week like 2 weeks later, so sorry if you noticed that.
Disaster.
I was so embarrassed when I realized.
The wheels are just coming off.
Haha.
Oh. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
Yeah.
So, thanks for joining us, and let us know if you liked our field trip episode. And hopefully you liked this episode.
And if you didn't like it, just still say that you liked it so you don't hurt Zeb's feelings.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
All right. Well, I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.